everybody, my name is Bibi and I am a travel nurse, and on this page I love to talk about all things travel nursing. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can make almost $100,000, if not more, when you're working as a travel nurse. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. But before I start, if you see that little subscribe button somewhere down here, please click on that subscribe button because that will alert you when I post up new videos. As a travel nurse is to forego the typical 36-hour contract and do a 48-hour-a-week contract. This will dramatically increase your take-home pay, and at least you know that you will be set making a certain amount of money. These contracts are not very typical, but if you ask around and you talk to your recruiter about it or the hospital, getting a 48-hour guaranteed contract is a sure way to maximize your take-home pay and help you reach your goal. Another thing that you can do to help you make your $100,000 goal is to step outside your typical 13-week contract. So what do I mean by stepping aside from your 13-week contract? So there's different kinds of contracts. One of them is a rapid response crisis assignment. Then we also have EMR conversions and short-term contracts. So what's a rapid response contract? So that would be where an area is impacted by devastation, or there's something going on, there's a strike, something that requires a vast number of nurses to come to a certain area and help and assist. So with those kind of contracts, they're typically shorter than 13 weeks because basically as a nurse, you're coming in, you're helping settle the contract, and you're out. But during that time, you can maximize on how much money you can make. So typically with those contracts, you will be flown in, you will be put in a hotel, so you don't have to worry about any of that, and you will be paid more than average because this is a crisis. Right now, we have a hurricane going on outside. I'm filming in Florida. And after this hurricane, I can guarantee you that we're going to have the floodgates of nurses that come into our area to assist in whatever has occurred. It may not be anything crazy, but we will need an extra set of hands. Those nurses will probably be making a lot more than what they normally would have got if they would have came here prior to the hurricane. Another way that you can make a lot of money is during EMR conversions. So these contracts, they're very, very, very lucrative. So what's an EMR conversion? So what ends up happening is nowadays, a lot of facilities are changing their charting system. So they're going to the EMR charting system. During this time, they take all their nurses off of the floor, or sometimes they'll have different groups of nurses that are taken off the floor, and during that time they will hire travel nurses to work the floor while their nurses get trained on the travel contract. While they get trained on the new charting system. And even after those nurses are trained, a lot of travel nurses will stay on because the nurses are going to take a little bit longer than usual while charting. So these contracts typically will pay more because these companies have deadlines. They have to get all their nurses trained by a set amount of time. They have people that are coming in from outside companies that are scheduled to do their training for a set amount of time. So they are in desperate need for nurses. And those normally pay you a lot more than the usual. Another way that you can make close to $100,000 a year working as a travel nurse is getting into a specialty prior to even going on a travel assignment. Specialties make substantially more than, say, a med-surg nurse or a regular telemetry nurse. If you go online and you start searching on certain websites, you'll notice like labor and delivery or cath lab or OR nurses make significantly more, up to $2,500 to $3,000 a week. That's working 3 shifts a week and making $3,000. Okay, so that's one of the ways that you can maximize. Prior to you becoming a travel nurse, take that extra year off and specialize in the ICU. Specialize in something that will make you more marketable, and you will also make more money. So the other thing that you can do is asking for an overtime bonus. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about with you making overtime as a traveler. It's not really that lucrative because, like I said, our taxable wage is so low that your overtime is not really that high. So I usually ask for an overtime bonus or find out if a company offers an overtime bonus. And what that is, because your company knows that your OT rate is kind of on the low side, they will sometimes offer you an incentive by paying you an extra $100 for every X amount of shifts that you pick up, Or at the end of your contract, they offer you a large amount of money based on how many overtime shifts that you pick up. So that itself will balance out the low OT rate that we get while working as travel nurses. Another way that you can reach your goal is by researching what states pay the most when it comes to travel nursing. Everybody knows about California. California by far is one of the highest paying states when it comes to travel nurses. Nurses in California make a lot of money. They make anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 typically. But if you're not trying to go to California and you want to work somewhere else, there's other states that you can go to that typically pay higher too. Some of these states are Massachusetts, Texas, Washington, New York, and did I say Massachusetts? I did. Massachusetts. Those are states that can be a great alternative than going to California. And if you play your cards right, you could even get a contract there that's $2,000 a week, and you don't have to worry about anything else. You could just do your 3 days a week and be done with it. But the thing is, you need to go outside of just thinking California, California, California. There's 49 other states other than California that pay a lot of money. Okay, so this is my number one advice when it comes to maximizing your gross take home and making your $100,000 goal. This is what I did when I was a travel nurse, and this is how I was able to make a lot of money. So, my number one tip is to get another job through another agency, like a daily per diem staffing type agency in the area that you're going to be traveling in. Especially if it's an area that you plan on staying for an extended period of time, this is a great way for you to maximize your take home and reach your $2,000 a week goal. And why is this more lucrative than actually staying at your facility and working overtime? I'll break it down for you. So, as a travel nurse, your typical taxable hourly rate is, let's just say for the sake of this math, it's $20 an hour. When you decide to pick up overtime, that's going to be $30 an hour after 40 hours. So, when you think about it, once you start your fourth 12-hour shift, your overtime rate does not kick in till hour 40. So, your first 4 hours is going to be your $20 an hour rate. So when you typically do the math, you're only getting overtime for 8 hours of that shift. And it's $30 an hour, which is typically pretty low anywhere else for overtime. Now, say I decided to go and work for an agency, at another hospital, another facility. I'm going to be making at least $40 to $45 an hour, sometimes even $50 an hour. That rate starts the minute I clock in. So I'm going to be making, say, $45 an hour for my entire 12-hour shift. And if you do the math, that is going to be $540 for my shift. Even though that $540 an hour is going to be taxed, you're still going to substantially make more, because if we're going back to your overtime that you were making based on your $20 an hour rate, that gets taxed too. So if I'm making $1,500 a week on my contract and I just pick up one shift, that's $540 that I just added to my weekly rate. Hello, now you're at $2,000 or really close to it. So that is my number one tip, and what I recommend you do if you really want to make that $2,000 a week, $100,000 goal. Another way that you can maximize on your take-home pay is by taking on a night shift assignment. Typically, night shift nurses are harder to come by, and therefore, facilities will pay more for you to work a night shift. If night shift is not your thing, I definitely would not recommend that the way to go. You don't want to have your patients, yourself, and your coworkers suffering because you're not a night shifter. But if you are, I definitely recommend doing a night shift over a day shift. And also on top of that, when you are talking to your recruiter, see if you can ask them if you can receive a bonus for picking up a night shift. Because if you don't ask, they're not going to tell you. That's the number one advice that I always give travelers. You gotta ask. You don't expect your recruiter to just be handing you out information. You gotta ask. So if you're working on a night shift assignment, ask the facility, ask the recruiter if you can make a little bit more, or if they could throw in a little bit more cash just because you're working the night shift. What's the least that can happen? They could say no.